That's pretty cringe, bro.
3 years later.
I'm not gonna sit in summertime.
Okay, I'm not a furry, but that just looks cool, okay?
1 eternity later.
It's true. I hated furries a lot. I thought they were like the epitome of cringe, especially fursuits. Ugh. I regularly dunked on furries and poked fun at the idea of wearing a custom-made couch, but when no one was looking, I totally bookmarked art of someone's persona on DeviantArt, and then I furiously searched for how to clear my browser history. But what I didn't understand about myself yet was that I actually loved anthropomorphic art, and I thought fursuits were incredible walking art pieces, but somehow I still hated furries as a whole. Furries were like a forbidden fruit that you had to eat in secret. I would draw fox ears and tails on everything and hide it from everyone. It was subtle enough that no one, including myself, suspected me of being a furry in the first place. And I just couldn't stop doing it. Everything must have fox ear and tail. I was the most unfurry furry ever. So what was going on inside my head? Let's go back to where it all started. High school. Hi everyone, I'm Stormi, and up until a decade ago, I hated furries. It will probably come as no surprise to any of you that before I got into furry, I was a full-on weeb. I was heavily invested in the cosplay scene. I wanted to be a real-life Inuyasha and everything. I was so obsessed that I tried to start an anime club back in high school, but of course, being the socially awkward dork that I was, nobody was interested. Mostly because being a fan of any anime or manga was not considered a socially acceptable hobby. Before there were anti-furs, there were what I call anti-weebs. Keep in mind, this is the early 2000s we're talking about. Kids were compartmentalized into the stereotypical subgroups: the jocks, nerds, geeks, cheerleaders, you name it. And where I lived, anime had yet to really reach mainstream success. And most people didn't know the difference between Goku, Naruto, or Bugs Bunny for that matter. This, combined with me being the token quiet kid, meant that I was everyone's favorite target for bullying. One weird aspect of bullying, especially with kids, is that bullies will often manipulate other kids into doing things for them that would otherwise be considered uncool or unacceptable. So when they weren't throwing ketchup packets at my head, I was their quote-unquote artist. I was big on drawing anime characters at the time, and people took notice, even the bullies. In a twisted way, I was actually taking commissions long before I even knew what commissions were.
I hate you. Also, can you draw this? I have like 2 potatoes in a bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos.
I also didn't like Flaming Hot Cheetos, but I was scared, so I just accepted them anyway. It was a very strange situation, getting bullied for liking and drawing anime, but at the same time, they wanted me to draw anime for them? They hate it, but they can't resist it. I don't understand. It's funny to look back at this, because fast forward to today, and much of the average Zoomer's media consumption takes influence from Japanese culture. All this anime stuff led to my earliest introduction to anthropomorphic characters, Sonic OCs, to be precise. Original character, Do Not Steal. The same community that spawned many characters over the years, some for the better and some for the worse. I'm gonna call my therapist now. But that's okay, because most don't see Sonic as furry, right? Even though basically every Sonic character is a walking, talking animal with human-like characteristics, aka furry, but whatever. Keep fooling yourself, I guess.
No, Stormi, you don't get it. Like, you have to be a furry, you have to have a fursuit. And if you don't have a fursuit, you're not a furry.
I don't know who keeps making this stuff up, but y'all are all wrong, and I am right. I know this because I have a fancy schmancy $100,000 subscriber YouTube play button. You don't have to include that, Proto. My earliest anti-fur thoughts started soon after from something most of us experienced during adolescence, called peer pressure. This was also about a year after the infamous CSI Fur and Loathing episode. Unfortunately, this had, and it continues to have, a big influence on the perception of furries. And my suggestible teenage mind was helpless against it. I believed all the stereotypes, and being young meant I was a prime target for manipulation by fear-mongering content. Yeah, y'all know where this is going. I was easily susceptible to whatever misinformation was thrown my way, so looking at any furry art felt like this dirty, wrong, horrible thing that I wasn't supposed to be doing. The very sight of a fursuit would practically trigger a fight or flight response. Like, I was actually scared of furries for a while. And after the episode aired, journalists and tabloids got word of the furry fandom and published their findings. As I got older, learned what taxes are, and gained the ability to actually question things and have critical thinking skills, I learned that the furry community wasn't actually all that different compared to the anime and cosplay community. The one big exception was that furries are more charitable and seem to fight a lot more for whatever reason. But that's another story for another day. This realization also came at a time where fursuits were beginning to really evolve from their former mascot costume origins. And this only served to further push me towards the furry community. I was slowly but surely warming up to the idea of becoming a quote-unquote furry, but I hadn't quite escaped many of the fandom stereotypes. Notably, I still thoroughly believed that furries never washed their fursuits, were all born into wealth because, fursuits are not cheap, slept in their fursuits, wore them 24 hours a day everywhere, and many other things that were stretching the truth at best and flat out lies at the worst. All of this, of course, came crashing down when, and this is an embarrassing one, I stumbled upon art of Renamon on Google Images. Yeah, y'all know where this is going. I'm not a furry, but... Wait, no, I'm not a furry, I can assure you. But... Wait, no, I'm not a furry. But... Wait, furry butt? No, that's TOS, we can't show that. As time passed, not only did I become a Google image power user, I also started to feel less contempt towards furries. I was more curious than anything else, really. So curious, in fact, that in 2015, I somehow stumbled upon early furry YouTube regulars like Majira Strawberry and Picari Rue, who, for me, made the furry fandom feel like maybe it wasn't 100% cringe after all. It's still pretty cringe though, let's be honest. Eventually, I finally bit the bullet and decided to make my first fursona, which looked a little something like this. Believe it or not, this very early drawing would later evolve into Stormi the Folf. Wow, a canine.
Is that your mermaid man persona? That's cringe. You're cringe!
A few moments later.
I had finally earned my official furry badge. It made me feel like I was in the Sonic fandom again. Shortly after, I ended up joining a local furry group, and this is where it really hit me that furries are different. Like, for the most part, they have actual jobs. And they pay taxes, they get married, and are just trying to live their lives normally alongside their hobbies? I know it sounds crazy, but at the time, I was led to believe that furries were mostly the worst people society had to offer. Don't get me wrong, some definitely are, but thankfully those people tend to be the exception and not the rule, at least in my experience anyway. But what really blew my mind was discovering that nearly none of them had a fursuit. What? You could be a furry without a fursuit? This is an outrage! I felt like I was stuck in a Twilight Zone episode when I learned about this, because damn near everything I had learned about furries up to that point wasn't actually true? Now, that's not to say the furry fandom is this utopia of perfection. It's got its fair share of bad eggs just like any other community. But from a general perspective, most furries really are just like anyone else, trying to survive the ups and downs of everyday life. I'm not discounting those who had a god-awful experience with the community, don't get me wrong. But bear in mind that there are bad people in pretty much any community you can imagine. It's not just furries. Are furries cringe? Durr! Does a bear in the woods? Yeah, who cares? We're all cringe in some way, shape, or form, okay? So long as we're not hurting anyone, why not embrace it a little? I've been active in the fandom for almost a decade now, and while I still consider myself a furry, a lot's changed since the Dat Boy days. Something I'll have to save for another video. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts below. Were you a former anti-fur? Were you a former furry? Do you just happen to be a furry? Or maybe you're not a furry and you're just curious? Again, let me know in the comment section. And if you really enjoyed my tale, consider supporting me on my Patreon or YouTube memberships for perks like early access to vids, deleted scenes, my Discord server, and more.